the anger and the stuff that the people are doing now to the regime is actually justified, in my opinion. Like, it's what they deserve. They deserve to fear the people they have been oppressing for so long. And yeah, I mean, any questions?
No, so the issue that we're dealing with, like as you correctly mentioned, is the cruelty and the oppression. We don't have that much of a problem with brainwashing because the regime's brainwashing has not worked. In fact, it backfired. Like there is very limited successful brainwashing happening in Iran, except maybe the minority who still support the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic has managed to create the most Islamophobic country in the world. So I wouldn't. So when it comes to brainwashing, I would say that has backfired. So yeah, the the mental crisis that you might be referring to is as a result of the oppression and the cruelty and the lack of freedom and all of that, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
brainwashing. In fact, when it comes to brainwashing, we're solution to the brainwashing and the Islamic brainwashing in the world. I very much expect that once Iran is free, Iran is going to become basically the main base of operations for anti-Islamic an anti a war against Islam, right? And I think like a lot of countries who used to see Iran as a solution to Islamic radicalism are now going to see Iran as a funder of Islamic radicalism, are now going to see Iran to be their main threat, ideological threat. The ideas that are coming out of Iran is going to become the main ideological threat. I think like secularism and anti-Islamism is going to come out of Iran and is going to basically spread all around the region.
Well, that is to be expected from a regime that has been basically trying to brainwash people into believing that the Quran is the only true version of truth. But like, that's a very reactionary mindset to turn it into atheist stuff. Like, humans are like, they need something to believe in. It's something that's inside of every human being, every
We believe
human.
in Iran.
Yeah, but Iran is a construct that is also basically just an idea. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a
so,
good idea,
so is
but like,
religion. So is
it's
religion.
better. It's better than the alternative, and I support that. But like, it's a stepping stone towards something bigger and greater. That is
Oh,
maybe too, like, maybe I'm maybe too forward
that
about that
yeah,
one. But like,
that's
I'm
not going to
agnostic.
happen. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Iranian people are moving out of religion. They're not choosing any other religion. They're not choosing
I'm
other
not
religion.
advocating for any religion. The closest I am to any religion is Gnosticism, and when you kind of follow the dots and connect the dots with Gnosticism, it basically supports the notion that there is like a false deity that has been.
Yeah, not they're not choosing Gnosticism either. They're not going to choose Gnosticism. The best,
Neither, like, it's the closest that's like, that's the closest that I can like
uh,
explain what I believe in, but it's still not like what I
yep,
believe in. I believe in myself, and that's like the one thing that
yeah.
I think
The,
before I
I'm
act.
just telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm not talking about what you believe in. I'm going to tell you that the Iranian people, the main thing that they worship is their country. That's what they're going to worship the most, more than anything else. That's what's going to happen, and nobody's going to be able to change that. There are
That
going
is
to be
okay
many
if they
God
find
believers.
an identity by identifying as the people of Iran, and that is an okay stepping stone towards something that is
It's not a
bigger
stepping
and
stone. That's not a stepping stone. That's the destination. And I'm telling you, that's the destination, and we're happy with that.
okay.
That's not a stepping stone. Yeah. All right.
No problem.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, and by
Moderate,
the
but
way,
I can moderate.
okay. Thank you. The list that I
No
have right now.
problem.
By the way,
Thank you.
Giovanna, like I hope, like I really appreciate your support. By the way, I hope you don't think like I am being rude or anything. I do
No,
need
no,
to
no,
move
not
to
at
other
all.
people.
I wanted
I,
to express
yep.
my own opinion and
th-
listen to you
Thank
guys
you. Yep.
express yours.
I appreciate you being here and welcome to the community. So, Danny, the list that I have, by the way, Rebecca is here. That's amazing. Rebecca Barsef is here. So, the list that I have is Dingleberry, Jeffrey, Rebecca, and then Sabina.
Can you tell me, because I think our viewpoints are very different.
Can you tell me? I don't know what mullah means. Can you explain me what a mullah is?
So mullah is the English translation that we have for akhund. Akhund are the Shia Islamic authorities with the turban in their head, around their head. So that we
Oh,
call them mullahs.
okay, good. I think the big problem is, uh, as I said, I don't believe things are as black and white. Two things can be bad at the same time. I personally believe that the Shah was bad, but I know. What do you think the Shah was good or bad?
The Shah was the best thing that happened to Iran, and anybody who says otherwise has no idea what they're talking about.
Okay, because I've seen a lot of people use that example to say, look at Iran before the Shah and after the Shah, but that doesn't make sense because if you look at it was in the 40s, a lot of if you look at most countries at the 40s and the 70s, they got a lot better. So using the example of saying, oh, look at
No,
Iran before and after the Shah, it doesn't make sense because most countries got a lot better from the 40s and the
no, no.
70s.
The Iran was not just getting better. Iran was growing like it was in an insane rate, and almost by every metric. Compare Iran to its neighbors. Look at the growth in education, culture, healthcare, women's rights, the authority of our passport, our military, education, well-being, GDP. Even compared us to Iran, to even oil-rich countries. Like people like, oh, it was the oil. Well, compare us to Saudi Arabia. The level of growth that we were having was astronomical, and it was because of the Shah's insistence on modernization, education, and investment in culture.
But the thing is, one thing, the Shah's rule was much more authoritarian compared to the regime now. He didn't share power and he had like one voice and he was
That's
very
bull.
like,
That is absolute horseshit. The Shah was constantly trying to create more liberty. Every time he tried it, it backfired on him because the commies were trying to divide the country and make the Soviets be able to conquer parts of Iran. The Shah was actually obsessed with improving democrat to make Iran more democratic. He was obsessed with it. He was trying so many times to do that, and every time it backfired. He was constantly actually, and also comparing it to right now. What do you like? I mean, like, I'm sorry to say this thing. You're basically, you have no idea what you're talking about. The Shah left Iran when the revolution happened because he didn't want to stay in power by killing Iranians. He didn't want to spill any blood. His generals told him when the revolution of 1979 happened, the generals of the Shah told him that they could actually stop this revolution easily. And then he asked them how. Like, we could just shoot them and they would go home. So he said that if I have to rule by spilling Iranian blood, I'd rather rule not at all. And that's why he left Iran. And you compare that to the tens of thousands of Iranians that have been killed by the Islamic Republic right now just to stay in power, and you
and,
think that is even no, let me finish. Let me finish to what you're saying. Okay, let me respond to what you're saying. Like, I mean, it's actually embarrassing to even compare that. You say like, oh, it's the same. The Shah gave women the right to vote inside Iran before Switzerland. The Shah was somebody who was constantly fighting with Savak. I mean, I actually think Savak was on this point more correct than the Shah himself, but the Shah was constantly on the phone with Savak trying to get this different prisoners released, and the Savak was refusing his order because the Savak was like the CIA or Mossad of Iran at that time. The Savak was telling he said like they literally told the Shah that, Your Highness, you don't have the authority to release these prisoners. We're going to keep on hold on to them. Like, go look at the condition of the prisoners back. Like, people who would throw grenades in crowds got 2 or 3 year sentences with like amazing conditions in prison. Go look at the Shah forgave the person who tried to assassinate him. The person who shot him, he was hospitalized. He came to the Shah after he was arrested. They brought him to the Shah. The Shah asked the general right next to him, what should we do to him? The general told the Shah that we should execute him so that it becomes a lesson to anybody else who's trying to do this. And the Shah said, "No, I'm going to forgive him. I'm going to set him free. Set him free. Not even keeping him in prison." And that man became the greatest fan of the Shah after that. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. The Shah asked Savak to come up with a report showing what happens if they have completely free elections. See what happens, because he wanted to have complete free elections. And the Savak wrote a report to him showing that the communists are going to win and the Soviets are going to take whole parts of the country. And the Shah was angry with Savak for that report, saying that you're trying to make me into a dictator. The Shah was angry with his own intelligence because of that report. The Shah was somebody that when he actually allowed the democratic process to take place, the Mossadegh came into power, and he, against the constitution of Iran at the time, did a coup against him, trying to remove his from power and basically grab all the power for himself. So this was his experience with democracy. This is why his understanding was that maybe he's not going to be able to make Iran completely democratic during his time. And he said that maybe, hopefully, during my son's time, we will get there. And then he was focusing on education, because his understanding was that for democracy to work, we need to educate the population. So that's why he was obsessed with building schools and universities. That's why he went into the farthest villages in the country, sitting in a village. He would sit in classes watching teachers teach to elementary school students, just to see how good the quality of the education is. He paid university students with government money. He sent them to Europe and America to learn the best practices so that they could come back to Iran and build the country. And instead of bringing, some people brought their skills, like my father, for example, but many people came back with communism, which made things worse. Like, they went to the West, went to Europe, went to America, and from their universities, they brought back communist ideas back to Iran. So instead of being grateful to the Shah, they turned against them as a puppet of the imperialist West, which is ridiculous. By the way, Jeffrey, you wanted to add something to this?
Can I
Yeah, I'm like chomping at the bit, buddy.
can I say one thing?
Go ahead, then I'll tear it apart.
Uh,
Yeah.
but the when the Kurds and the Azerbaijani want still authorization, still governance, because they were second class citizens, they had no place in
Bullshit.
the government.
Bullshit.
They got
Bullshit.
Can,
Bullshit.
can I
That was
jump in
not the
on this?
Kurds and the Azerbaijanis. That was the separatists that he justifiably crushed because they were trying to tear the country. He was not oppressive to the Kurds. He was not oppressive to Azeris. He was justifiably came down hard on the separatists from those regions because they were trying to secede the country, and he kept Iran in one piece, and good on him.
but he was a kind of a sellout. He sell out his country, and you cannot
No,
use the thing
what the
about
fuck are you
women.
talking about? He never sell. No, 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 bullshit. He never sell.
Right?
When did he once sell out his country? In fact, he stood for his country. Till when did he sell his country? Give me one example.
What do you mean? The oil prices, and he let other people
That's
interfere in the
exactly when he
government.
didn't sell out his country. He stood, even though he was a major ally of United States, when the Americans were trying to bully him to reduce oil prices, he refused. That's exactly an example for him having not being a puppet, even though being a strong ally of United States, not acting like a puppet. He would cooperate with Americans, but he refused to reduce oil prices at the demand of the Americans. So that showed that he had a proper balance. That's a great example for him not being a sellout to the Americans and defending what was in the best interest of the Iranian citizens.
But another
Can I,
example is you
can
say,
I,
Let's go to Jeffrey. You keep saying you refuse to be educated. Every time I destroy every of your points, you're like, but,
but I
and you
have
don't,
one.
you
I
you
have
don't.
one good
No, hold
example.
on. I'm talking. Hold on.
go ahead.
You don't admit the like after I correct you every single time. You never accept that. Okay, sorry, I was wrong about this, and you say but, and you pivot to another wrong position without admitting that I corrected you on every other point that you brought up. You keep pivoting to something new and like but and you say something else that is absolute bullshit. Let's stop listening to your bullshit and let's listen to what Jeffrey has to say. Jeffrey, go on.
So yeah, I'm going to predicate this response. I'm pretty sure the reason why Armin is getting reasonably, understandably upset is because a lot of the questions you're asking, which are based on historical revisionism, like revisionistic history, is very much synonymous with a lot of the moral flattening you see from mullah aligned elements in the red green alliance. And it very much smacks of, or is the evolution of, the thematic elements that define the socialist or pro Soviet elements that comprise the red black alliance that directly underwrote the insurgency that took down the Shah and destroyed the Shah's bold attempt at moving Iran away from a feudalist system to one of tolerant modernity. With regards to how if you apply a framework of maximum consequentialism, mean how you do the most good for the most people. Prior to the Shah, Reza Pahlavi, Prince Reza Pahlavi's father, Iran was very much a feudalist system in many ways. His Highness the Shah initiated something called the White Revolution, which was actually a hallmark of modernity and development throughout the Middle East. You had women who were able to vote. He broke apart monopolies in land and allowed socioeconomic mobility of small farmers. He pushed for a school program, including making sure kids were fed. Literacy jumped up to 97%. His pursuit of nuclear power was legitimately civilian because he wanted to bring Iran into the 20th century. What you're doing is kind of akin to the criticism that former President Nixon mentioned when he was being interviewed on his position on the Shah. You have to look at the Shah in a fair context of what he was facing. What about Savak? I'm not saying that Savak didn't engage in some heavy handed things in some cases. There is no comparison, none, between SAVAK, which is an intelligence agency that was beholden to a secular state, that did not control the courts, that did not control any religious aspect, that very much was set up as a counterintelligence apparatus in direct response to the unbelievable threat and pressure that the Shah faced via the Red Black Alliance vis a vis Soviet backed insurgents. Armin can tell you how to pronounce that particular pro Soviet Marxist group. It's like the Talua. I always butcher it.
Hezbollah today.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks. Thank you, Armin. Right? And Islamic fundamentalists that ultimately became the Ayatollah and the Mullahs. If you take a look at who was in prison and what occurred. So it's true, Savak, there was some misuse, there was some misapplication and abuse. That's like maybe a couple hundred people now when you actually do the accurate assessment. Compare that to the hundreds of thousands that have died in the prisons created by the post Shah mullah regimes, like prisons, like white torture. The Shah never engaged in that. This is an intelligence agency that was beholden to a secular state, whereas the thugs that masquerade as the mullah regime's intelligence agencies is the state. There is no comparison. Zero. Zero. And the reason why Armin's getting pissed off, and I don't blame him, it isn't because I don't think it's at you, brother. It's more like constantly having to debunk this, like, bullshit narrative that is pushed by the Red Green Alliance in no insignificant manner right now, amplified by the Mullah regime to try and fragment the broad support of brave Iranian protesters in the hope of like helping the regime survive. And that's why I think he's getting upset. I don't blame him. To that end, Armin, read your messages. I sent you the report you wanted on the
Yeah.
Respond to Jeffrey. Can I respond to
Just
Jeffrey?
1 second. Just 1 second. Let me just say two things. Another reason why it makes me angry is non-Iranians telling Iranians about their history while they're dying in the streets of Iran, asking
No,
for
I'm
Pahlavi back.
Iranian. I'm
Yep.
Iranian. Right.
Okay, then okay, well then that's it. عذر بهتر از گناهه. If you're Iranian and you don't know your own history, that's actually more shameful than non-Iranians not knowing Iranian history. Because
همه چی من
Iranians in the
میدونم.
streets of Iran,
ایرانی باید من چیزا گفت.
The Iranians in Iran shouting Pahlavi will return, and then you coming out here and saying Pahlavi was bad. I'm pretty sure they know what they're dying for. I know, I know. I told you that that's even more shameful because you're basically betraying your countrymen dying for the return of Pahlavi by basically going around and telling Pahlavi
نه
was bad
ایرانی
while
با این
Iranian
چیزا.
people are dying for Pahlavi to return. That's the number one chant in the streets of Iran while they're being shot at, is that this is the final battle, Pahlavi will return. And you as an Iranian going out there and saying Pahlavi was bad is a betrayal of what the Iranian people are dying for right now.
پدر من دوستان من همه ایرانی من میدونه این چیزو میگن.
Speak English. Speak English. I don't care. That's anecdotal. Oh, Pederman, my father says this. Oh, wow. Okay, guys, forget data, forget facts, forget statistics. Let's Dingleberry's father. Let's see what he has to say. Sure. Okay.
I think we gotta move on.
Yeah, we gotta move on.
Rebecca
And also,
Barsev is next.
by the way, just one last thing about Savak. I know some people say Savak went too far sometimes, right? I understand that, Jeffrey. It is true though that when Savak was abolished, that's when the Islamists managed to basically get the upper hand. So whatever they were doing, it was
I'm very
working.
pro Savak,
And
Armin. Anybody who
yes,
wants to
yeah,
sit there and see the like the quantitative and qualitative assessment from a maximum consequentialist approach between Savak under the Shah and what followed under the Mullah regime, just go to his school group. You'll see, a comparative assessment between Savak and the IRGC and the thugs that masquerade as intelligence officers under the mullahs. I also have another report regarding the murder of tolerant modernity and what defined the Shah's efforts and why it is he did what he did and what it is that was stolen from Iranians when the Red Black Alliance destroyed the Shah.
yeah.
By the way, women are more literate now than they were before. I'm just going to say that in the
Okay, Dingleberry,
Because of the Shah!
that is so fucking retarded. You're actually an idiot, Dingleberry. You know what? Actually, the Islamic Republic is good, much better than every other dynasty or any other government we have, because we have fridges under the Islamic Republic, and we didn't have that during the Sassanid dynasty. We didn't have fridges during the Sassanid dynasty. We didn't have planes. Under the Islamic Republic, we have cars. Under the Achaemenid dynasty, we didn't have. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? That is the most retarded comparison I've ever heard of. Like, the reason, first of all, the reason why women are more educated is because of the investments Pahlavi made in schools and universities before they went out. This is why Iranian women are more educated. This is why Iranian women are more bold and have the position they have in Iranian society, because of the investments the Pahlavi dynasty, the two Pahlavis, made in the Iranian woman. This is it's not it has nothing to do with the Islamic Republic. You are actually defending the Islamic Republic by saying that, as if the Islamic Republic has been pro-woman. That is the most retarded bullshit I've ever heard. You are a defender of the Islamic Republic, and you should be ashamed of that. Fuck you. Let's move on.
Rebecca Barsef is next.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. Great to have you here.
I don't know why am I dark. Hello,
Go-
wait. I look funny. I didn't check my here. How you? Sup? Anyway, nice being here. It's been a while. It's been several conversations, different conversation, and I kind of want to touch on several of them, and which they all kind of, they have a theme, a repeating theme, because I'm kind of comparing some of the topics that went, and they actually the how to say it, like some lessons that could be learned from Russia, who went through a process of there was a revolution, like a destructive government, and then it was toppled in a nicer way than what's happening now, but then and then they had to rebuild themselves, and it didn't go back to democracy. And I think in some ways Russia and Persia and like Iran have some similar structural challenges. First of all, I want to touch on the brainwashing thing. I want to say that brainwashing is not necessarily just religion. And when it comes to the Russians, for example, one of the brainwashing that still is apparent to this day is the fact that Russians believe in their hearts that it doesn't matter kind of what they do. They don't try to affect the system, and they just just do your business, and just do whatever is in your business, and that's it. So it's like something that stayed culturally, and it's not religious, and but it's like so hard, like a hardwired to believe that first of all the scope of influence that you have is limited no matter how much you try, and then just to like just keep your nose down. It's just hardwired into their, like, it's not, it doesn't even have to be true. It's just the way they now like inherently believe things are, right? And it affects everything. And the other thing I want to touch on is, so I'm gonna actually jump to the woman thing that also reminded me that after the communist revolution there was this quick education, introducing education and literacy to the entire population in Russia, but the truth is that the infrastructure was made during the Tsar's time, and the communists didn't contribute anything. They just were the ones to get the credit from what was already being set before that. So that was also something that people bring. It's like, okay, so I want to just clarify that just like the Islamists, the communists did not do anything that was good, not even a little anything. So, and the other thing I want to touch on, what is interesting about Russia and Iran is it is a big country and it is multi-ethnic, and it is multi-ethnic large country that is codependent because of the geographical structure of the area. Meaning Russia is the size it is not because these people want each other, but mostly because it is geographically obligated to be that. So it has a geographical tension that made it that pushes it to those borders. And in Iran, there is something rather similar that's happening. But what I want to say here is not necessarily touching on that, is to say that there is a conversation in Russian as well, right? And in the Kafkaz. So I can tell you that like the Azeris from Azerbaijan, and I think I texted you about it, Armin. It's very interesting to say what they have to say about the Azeris that are in Iran, right? Because the Azeris in Azerbaijan, for the most part, don't view the Azeris in Iran in the most flattering light, to be honest. And there was a podcast like with the Georgians, right? And it's in Russian, so it's a whole world. It's very interesting how the Azeris in Azerbaijan, they were describing how the Azeris in Iran infiltrated the government basically in every iteration of governance in Iran, and how they did that to basically not do things in favor of Iran. And that even now, that sentiment still exists.
Okay. So let me go through the things that you mentioned. So interesting regarding the brainwashing point in Russia. I think in Iran, we're not going to like brainwashing regarding thinking that they cannot make a change. I think in Iran, we're not going to have that. That hasn't been effective either. So the religious brainwashing hasn't been either. But the idea that you cannot change your destiny, obviously, you could see by the number of people who are dying to change the destiny in Iran.
The desperation level is really high as well in
Yes,
Iran,
yes.
and the genocide was planned in the summer anyway.
Yeah, let me just go through the points.
Yeah.
Okay, so they based on my impression of what the Iranian attitude has been for the past couple of years is a huge belief that we will be victorious and we will change our destiny, right? So
Mhm.
if there was an attempt that this is it and you can't change it, I don't think it has worked in Iran, that level of brainwashing. With regards to women, by the way, you're very correct. Like the I think the position of women in Iran during the Qajar dynasty before the Pahlavis was worse than Afghanistan today, right? And imagine Iran now, women in Iran have a stronger position in society than women in most other societies, even stronger than in some, Western societies, right? And that's all because of Pahlavi. That's all because of Reza Shah and Muhammad Reza Shah. And the fact that even under the Islamic people are like, oh, under the Islamic Republic, women thrive. The Islamic Republic did everything in its power to put women into their homes. The fact that they failed was because of the investments of Pahlavi, not because of what the Islamic Republic was trying to do. And with regards to the Islamic Republic, there is one good thing that the Islamic Republic has done. One thing that I think we could appreciate the Islamic Republic for. They now realize that they need Pahlavi. I think the Iranian people were not at before the Islamic Republic didn't understand how they should be for Pahlavi. And I think the Islamic Republic has made them realize that. And I think that's the only good thing that the Islamic Republic has done. Oh, the second good thing has done actually two things. Iranian people now hate Islam because of the Islamic Republic. So that's another good thing that the Islamic Republic has managed to do. With regards to the multi-ethnic nature of Iran, in Iran, the ethnic identity has become less and less important in favor of the national identity. And usually, so the people with separatist mentalities, like a lot of people talk about the Kurds, even though among the Kurdish population, that's like a very, very small issue. But it might be a little bit higher in Azeris, but it's still a minority. It's still a minority, like a small minority.
Yeah, and the
So
northern ones don't want them, for the record.
that's good. We
It's like
want them.
something they keep
They're
repeating.
they're ours. You can't have them.
Because
We're
it's
grateful
different
for
with
having them.
the Kurds. The Kurdistan wants the Kurds in Iran, but the Azeris don't want the Azeris in Iran.
Yeah, well, the Iranian Kurds, the vast
Yeah,
majority
yeah,
of
I
Iranian Kurds
understand.
are Iranian first and Kurdish second, and they are proud patriots of Iran. And we have ancient bonds with each other. We might have different ethnicities, but we share the same legends, we share the same history, we basically share the same symbols, and our national bonds are stronger than our ethnic identities.
Yeah, it is
Mm.
very similar in Russia, I want to say. Right? I said it like
Mm.
to say like not always the ethnicities are 100 with each other, but the Russians is way stronger than whatever other identity they have
Don't
still.
okay. Don't know much about
But
Russia, so I'll just take your word.
but it's just interesting. And I want to also just add a caution, right? So when I gave the Russian example, I didn't say it that because I think this is what the Iranians have. It's that every culture has a point of weakness, and that weakness gets exploited in cycles. For the Jews, for example, is the Jews struggle with structure and systems. So building like an infrastructure and systematically working and having clear organization, that's something that is the Jewish struggle
Okay.
that repeats itself. So it could be that in Iran there is something else that could you should be addressed, and
All right.
it's something to brainstorm on. Just saying.
Okay. So that's an interesting point. I think our greatest weakness right now is that we're not armed. But yeah, let's go to other people now. But those are interesting points.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, Sabina is going next. For anyone wondering if you're on the list, I posted periodically in chat, so you can check.
Thank you, Danny.
Okay. I wanted to touch upon a lot of issues that were raised, I guess. But I mean, the first thing that I want to say is, before anybody makes like disparaging comments about Mohammad Reza Pahlavi Shah, go back and like watch some interviews with him, do some basic Google searches on your assumptions. Put into Google, was he a Western puppet? And you'll come up with, the AI will come up with like I think it's like 7 or 8 points that are against that. And I lived in Iran under him. And I had, just because of all the discussion, I had a conversation with my mother recently about it. And, one of the things that she brought up, one of the first things she brought up is some of the points that Armin mentioned, that, women were involved in government, that women were, receiving, higher education, and, over there, they didn't want Americans to drive. Like DuPont, that had us over there, didn't want Americans to drive. So we had Iranian drivers. And my mom said that all of the Iranian drivers were pretty pro Shah, and were that if Khomeini comes back, it's a terrible, terrible, bad thing. My father said a lot of things too that weren't true, and some that were. But in terms of this idea of Iranians needing something, religion, or some, they have before them, the Iran Prosperity Project. They have the task of writing a constitution for the country. One of the things that Mohammad Reza Pahlavi did was insisting on a cultural identity before Islam. And there's so much culture in Iran. Why do they need anything else other than to revive their own culture that Islam has suppressed? It's and in terms of something, they have Reza Pahlavi coming back. He just gave a news conference in 3 different languages that he handled himself and translated in English for the English speakers when it was in another language. He has brought together experts and the apparatus is in place, and in terms of PTSD that they might be experiencing, I mean, that's where Israel can help. Yeah.
All right.
That's most of what I wanted to say, I guess.
Thank you, Sabina. All right. So, by the way, Danny, I know you're typing in the chat the time limits, but feel free to open your mic if we go too far above, 3 minutes.
Did you say feel free to cut people off after 3 minutes?
Yep. Yeah. And
Okay.
then we'll see if we want to continue or not. Yeah.
All right. Next on the list is Dajjal.
Dajjal.
Yeah. You hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. 3 minutes.
Yeah. This is interesting. Yeah, Dinkleberry, I got a question for you. Are you a leftist by any chance?
No. Dajjal, don't ask anybody any question because it's going to be hard to manage. Just make all your points in 3 minutes, and then if he wants to respond after the 3 minutes, he would respond. But go on, because I don't want to become a pink. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, fair point.
Danny.
Next on the list we have Nicholas.
Nicholas.
My question is, you mentioned about the Savak, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that the Shah of Iran, at the point in time, he knew everything that was being done by Savak in terms of the...
No, he was not. He's not God, obviously, and he said that he seemed to have been somebody who's been trying to, for example, end physical torture everywhere in the country. The fact that he said he's trying, that means that he's not going to be able to stop it everywhere. That means that there are things happening in the country that is not. And I'm pretty sure, given that we know that he was fighting with Savak sometimes, to me suggests that Savak was also doing things that they consider to be important without, like, maybe sometimes without the Shah knowing. Sometimes.
Okay, thank you.
Also, the Shah abolished the Savak at some point because of all that global accusations of human rights violation. Some people suggest that that might have been a mistake because right after Savak was abolished, that's when the Islamic Revolution became successful. I used to think that as well. I'm not sure anymore because I kind of think like the Shah just didn't want to rule with an iron fist. He just didn't want to do that. Some people think that he should have because look at the tragedy that we're experiencing with right now. But now I think that maybe that's how it's supposed to happen. Like, it's not enough for the Shah to be mature, and the people are not. I think he was ahead of our time. Like, he was ahead of the people, right? And the only people for the people to get to that level is for them to experience what happens when. Because I think that the Shah's effectiveness in selling these ideas that the Iranian people now believe in would have been undermined if he just wanted to force it on us. Right? A lot of us wish that he just fought back much stronger against the mullahs. But I think that we wouldn't, like, the Iranian people would not be at the level of maturity they are right now if he just ruled with an iron fist and he forced his way on us. Like, modernization and prosperity cannot come from the top down. It has to be from the bottom up. And the Iranian people were not there yet, and now they are. And the fact that he just let it happen means that the Iranian people are now at the level that the Shah used to be 47 years ago.
Right.
Does that make sense? Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me call up the next person. I think Jeffrey wanted to respond, but you're third on the list, Jeffrey. So to it. And
No, if he wants to respond to this, that would be okay. He doesn't have to wait for his turn. Yeah, go ahead. Like, can you talk about this?
So, just to give people kind of a tool to think about it, right? SAVAK gets formed in 1957 to 1979. The nature of it was a state security and counterintelligence service. It was responsive to a political system that was a secular monarchy and a Cold War state. Its mission is counter Soviet-backed communist subversion, monitor Islamic extremist movements, and protect state stability and sovereignty. Its scope and limits focus primarily on organized opposition, particularly like leftist terrorists and Islamic fundamentalist terrorists. It did not control the military, did not control the economy, did not control the judiciary, did not operate parallel courts or militias, and operated within a recognizable state hierarchy. It had targeted surveillance, detention, and interrogation. Its efforts were instrumental, not ideological. There were no mass executions, no theologically based legal system. They're dissolved in 1979. When they're dissolved, the mullahs butcher a whole host of people who were part of SAVAK. Let's take a look at what replaced it. IRGC thugs that masquerade as intelligence. The nature is ideological intelligence apparatus combined with paramilitary power. See the Besiege Brigade as Exhibit A and all the horrible shit they've done. You know, if you want to take Netta Aga Sultan, I mean, you could just, I'm sure Armin could just rattle them off like that. The political system is a theocratic revolutionary state, which means now it's a theological despotism. The mission is to preserve a clerical rule and revolutionary ideology, so it isn't defense. Export revolution abroad, which is why you have elements of the IRGC doing things like supporting Hezbollah and all these other fuckers. Suppress all dissent, political, cultural, religious, regardless of the threat they pose. Its scope and power is it controls intelligence services, militias, courts, and prisons. It operates parallel to and indeed above the formal state, much like Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state or the Soviet Union. It dominates large sectors of the national economy and directly sustains proxy terror networks. See the aforementioned Hezbollah. What's its profile, its operational profile? Systemic torture, including white torture, mass arrests and executions, criminalization of religious offenses, and apostasy and blasphemy, mostly by killing people, collective punishment of entire families, and public terror used as a deliberate policy. So, why did I go through all of that? One of the lines of effort pushed by the Red Green Alliance, which is very much the contemporized version of the Red Black Alliance that served to undermine the Shah, is to try and engage in this bullshit moral flattening and or a false moral equivalency between SAVAK and what exists today. There is no fucking comparison whatsoever, goddamn ever, not in any way, shape, or form. And one of the operational motives underpinning that is to try and fragment the support of the brave Iranian protesters right now in the hopes of trying to survive that. I promise you, that regime is dead no matter what.
I want to say that any force that is like Mossad, Shabak, all this, they all make mistakes. Sometimes they use unnecessary force to people that don't deserve it. And it's just because stuff are complicated and not always right or wrong. Some cases just are sad and tragic, but it doesn't have to be an example for everything, even if you find extreme examples, and you will always find. So that's it.
Go ahead.
Hey, as far as I'm concerned on this issue of Savak, secret police stuff, number one, kind of keep in mind, like in Egypt, Al Sisini fighting against the Muslim Brotherhood. You got the Saudis fighting against the Muslim Brotherhood. All of these people are nothing. They all operate these nasty ass secret police forces. They go out there, and basically, I don't care what it takes to take them down. If we have to bring Savak back, then bring Savak back. We have got to take these people down. They have got to go. Not only see what I really see and love about you guys in Iran, you're the spearhead. I am not anti-Muslim or whatever. I am just this anti-man of fire ruling people of clay. These people have no authority, none. I mean, and even Muslims don't like them. Look at what they did to al-Baghdadi and stuff. You know, the nice thing about Muslims, I finally realized there is a point where even they can't take it anymore. You guys are the spearhead of just reforming Islam. I'm not here really to destroy Islam. I would settle for fixing Islam,
Oh,
and it can be.
oh, Eric, we're not trying to reform Islam. The Iranian people are the vast
I know.
majority of the Iranian people I talk to are trying to destroy Islam and everything that even remotely resembles Islam.
Yep, that's a whole other conversation, and we're already at
Yeah.
9 minutes.
I
So
just,
Right.
we
I'm
have to
not
move on.
saying you're destroying Islam. I'm just saying that we have got to end this mullah rule stuff. They're trying to bring it in
Yes.
America. They're bringing
Oh,
it in Europe. They come into my
All
country,
right.
and it's gonna change.
yeah, okay. All right. So, Danny, I know this is just let me just quickly say this, especially after the amount of massacre that we said. Like, I'm telling you that Iranian people are not just done with the Islamic Republic. A lot of them are done with Islam. And also, the biggest problem Slovak is going to have is that it's not going to know what to do with the volume of applications it's going to get after the Islamic Republic falls, because there's going to be so many Iranians who want to become Slovak members so that they go after the remaining Islamists and Mullahs and IRGC members. So I think that's going to be the greatest challenge for Slovak. Too many applications to join. But yeah, let's go. Yeah, Kian in the chat saying that includes me. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Giovanna is up next.
Hi, I just wanted to say that whenever you personally or as a nation or whatever give your power to an external force, you end up being a servant of that force. No matter what kind of ideology it's supposed to represent, and it may seem all shiny and new, but it's usually it just topples down, and historically all systems failed humanity. The only system that I see not failing humanity is actually people believing in themselves, and that takes a lot of work. And I understand it's a little bit strange and out there, an out there concept, like people just being, I don't know how to say that. English is my third language. I don't speak like, I'm not like a native English
You're
speaker.
doing good. We understand you.
Good. The whole idea that I personally represent is that all systems are eventually doomed to fail because they concentrate power in small circles, and centralized power is basically the rule of a few people over the majority. And that is a huge step, a huge leap forward that humanity has to make in order to free itself from that kind of system. And it's kind of maybe utopian talk right now, but like we have the technology to and the know-how and the people and everything in place and the infrastructure, everything to make that happen. And there's only a couple of people that are hindering us from doing that, and that are those people who are still in that kind of story that they have to be the boss of everybody else and have to steer humanity into a future that they think it's best for them, and it's just a mess. And this is a start of something that I personally see it as a start of something that nobody knows where it's going to end, because it's a new story that is being written, and the rejection of Islam and other religions is a stepping stone towards actually humanity believing in itself for once. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
All right. Jeffrey wanted
All
to
right.
say something quickly.
No, no. Can I first respond to that? Because, like, before Jeffrey, first of all systems don't fail. Many systems have been proven to make people's lives better. Right? All systems don't fail humanity. There are many systems that we could empirically show that have been very, very successful. And I do believe that individualism is good to a certain extent, like believing in yourself. But humans are social animals, and beyond individual identity we have also collective identity. Humans live in, like, our DNA requires us to live in tribes, and we are fulfilled when we have a group identity, and group identities are important for our survival, and group identities are also important for our mental health. So groups require systems. You cannot just rely on yourself as an individual. Humans are the most social animals out there. They rely on each other. So we cannot just believe in ourselves. We also have to believe in each other. We also have to believe in the groups that we are in. When it comes to the centralization of power, too much centralization of power is a thing that we have to address, but too little centralization of power is also an issue, because any system requires management, any system requires leadership. So some centralization of power is to some degree required, and this is where the best systems, after the age of enlightenment, through the classical liberal values, through systems that we call the modern republican tradition or the modern nation states, we actually came up with the very standards that balances centralization of power and decentralization of power at a perfect rate, a perfect level. We came up with systems to avoid too much centralization of power. For example, Montesquieu came out with the separations of power within government, when we have the judiciary separated from the legislative, separated from the executive. That was a system that we put in place to make sure that the government doesn't have too much centralization of power. Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, Capitalism, Free Trade, all of that managed to come up with economic systems that doesn't have too much centralization of economic power, right? So these are systems that we could show. I mean, you say like, oh, these systems have always failed. I mean, if you look at empirical data, humanity has been improving in the past 150 years. We have been improving by every single metric. Our
Exponentially, yeah.
health, our well, let me make my point. Our
Excuse me.
health, our education, our access to clean water, our access to each other. Just 200 years ago, every mother would have to bury half of their children before they reach age 5. Now a mother cannot even imagine that happening to them. Look at average people today in the poorest countries are living higher quality lives than Marie Antoinette, right? So, which was the richest woman at her time. So this is amazing progress, and it's only because of the systems that came out of the age of enlightenment from Western Europe. So these systems are working, they're making our lives better, and everything shows that it's continuing to improve. And when it comes to collective identity, yeah, I respect individual identities. I think individualism is very important. But when it comes to collective identities, I do think that nationalism and patriotism is the best collective identities that humanity has ever created. And to me, it seems like it's working and everything is getting better under this new model.
Okay, I respect your opinion, but I disagree because it simply is going back to something that has failed once. Like didn't fail completely, but it did not fulfill or make use of the whole human potential. And that is something that I cannot stand to watch, because I believe that humanity as a whole has so much potential to become something
So Giovanna,
better.
like not being able to take off humanity's full potential. So basically, anything short of perfect, you're considering it a failure. I don't consider it a failure because we're short of perfect. I compare to what we had before, and if the system is causing us to improve, I consider that a success, even if it's not complete. And also, anything that could get us close to humanity's full potential has to include collective identity, because when our very nature, humans are social animals. So individual identity is not enough. We need collective identities. So if you want to get to full human potential, you need to have our need for a society, a tribe, our need for having a group identity in mind if you want to take advantage of the full human potential.
I respect that, and I agree that some people are still in that kind of a modality. Personally, I
That's our
believe that there,
DNA. That's our
yeah, but
DNA.
like
Is yeah.
there are people who are maybe in a different modality and at this point, and who are I mean there the the whole it doesn't have to be like everybody has to evolve at once. Like it's not
Of course,
possible. It's simply
just
not like.
before I go to Jeffrey, I agree that not everybody has to live the same way. To allow for some individuals to live differently, we need a safe society that we build with each for each other, We need to have a framework that provides enough security for those individuals who want to live differently to be able to live differently. But then to create that society, that requires group work for those individuals to be able to live differently in a safe and secure environment.
Yes, I agree with that.
All right. Jeffrey wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, if I could. So to
We're
bounce off
already
one
at
of the
10
point,
minutes, by the way.
okay. The idea that you can have both communists and anarcho-capitalists are wrong for the very same reason, albeit they come at it from a different perspective. You're always going to have hierarchy and order. That's actually it's called emergent order. It's based on two realities: the law of unequal growth and the law of demand. The law of unequal growth says that each actor, because of its own inherent capabilities, luck, right, grows at different rates than other actors in this system. And the law of demand says the larger the actor gets, by definition, more demand it makes on the system. So the issue isn't between order or no order. The issue is what type of order exists, right? And so to bring this back to what, like, a lot of the to push back against the false moral flattening that exists, there was order under the Shah. That's true. That is night and day. The Shah's bold attempt at bringing Iran from its feudal esque nature to what would be defined at the time as tolerant modernity is night and day different than the horrific crap that came after the Shah as it's represented by the mullahs. As far as like capitalism is concerned, very good system in most things. That being said, I'm going to tighten this shot group. It's true that the founding fathers of the United States very much supported capitalism. The United States was based on the jealous celebration of the value of the individual. You see it enshrined in all of our founding documents, provided it was also informed by a Kantian enlightened self-interest, right? And that's where it's what type of order exists. Even in a capitalist system, centers of gravity arise. So the question is, what kind of order do you want? Do you want one that like Nazism or the Soviet Union or the Mullah regime? Or do you want it represented by something like the United States or the Shah or South Korea, right?
Well, a last point. I think we have to look towards our imagination to come up with a system that consolidates all these systems that have been beneficial to humanity and consolidates it into a system that can work universally in all in most countries. But it's an idea. It's nothing substantial yet. So that's my take.
Before we go to the next person, I just want to really appreciate Danny. It's really hard to track who's doing what and who wants to add a point and what people are saying in the chat. And I think he's missing the conversation because he's just modding. So I really am feel bad. Thank you so much, Danny, by the way.
Sammy is next.
So by the way, when I was talking, Rebecca raised her hand in case you don't see. Sammy.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions. One being, I don't know whether you guys know Patrick Bet David. He's an Irani-born American businessman, and I don't know why you don't like him, but he's very close to the Trump administration, and
I don't. It's not that I don't like him. I hate him.
he says things that make sense to everybody, and
He's
I believe.
retarded.
Yeah, and so what his opinion is that the son of Reza Shah Pahlavi is not a competent leader. Is He believes that anybody who America Donald Trump has the power to dethrone Khamenei, and if Reza Pahlavi really wants that to happen, he should have some kind of contact. I don't know, what do you think about it? Kindly tell that. And if not, then what? The second question I have is, what would be the effect of liberalization of Iran from Islam have in countries like Jordan or Iraq? Yeah, that's two questions. I would like you to answer,
All
Mr.
right.
Anand.
So first of all, let's for Patrick Bet David, let's look at his record, right? He once said that he doesn't understand why Prince Reza Pahlavi, when we had the elections in Iran, the election for presidents for the president, he said he doesn't understand why Prince Reza Pahlavi just doesn't go to Iran and participate in the election for president. Do you understand that somebody who says something like that is basically loses all credibility for having any opinion
No, but
regarding politics
yeah,
in Iran? Well, okay. No, let me go through the points that I'm trying to make. Okay. Also, please understand the reason why he had Princess Pahlavi on his show, and he was like really like admiring him and everything. And he turned against Princess Pahlavi once Princess Pahlavi was not coming on his show anymore, right? And he actually even admitted that multiple times, like he's not answering my calls. And the reason why he turned against Princess Pahlavi was because he was not getting a response anymore for Princess Pahlavi. Another thing to show his credibility, in one of his shows when he was demonstrating how Princess Pahlavi is not fit, he showed a poll. I don't know, I think it was on Polymarket, showing to show that the people who are betting, they don't really take Princess Pahlavi seriously. Jason, I'm seeing hearing echo. So they're not taking Princess Pahlavi seriously. So he showed a poll where the question was, who is the next supreme leader of Iran? And he showed that Princess Pahlavi is not even on the list. And he says, like, look, Princess Pahlavi is so not a serious candidate that he's not on the list of this Polymarket question. And he, which, by the way, I hope you understand how retarded that is. The question was, who's the next supreme leader of Iran? Basically, supreme leader meaning like an ayatollah, like a mujtahid. Okay. And he also said that, oh, it's actually interesting that, what's her name? What's that woman's name with the not Masih Alinejad, the other one? Forgot her name. The one that got a Nobel Peace Prize.
an activist, I believe.
Narges Mohammadi. Narges Mohammadi, right, sir. He was like, oh, Narges Mohammadi is not on the list as well. Wow. Okay, so he was wondering, oh, so maybe Narges Mohammadi was not a serious candidate as well. Narges Mohammadi is a woman. She wouldn't be on a list of people for the supreme fucking leader. So this is how retarded Patrick Bet-David is. Yeah, Muhammad, yeah, I could tell you, Prince Reza Pahlavi is not going to be the supreme leader of Iran. He's not going to be the supreme leader of anything. We're ending the idea of supreme leader. And only mujtahids, ayatollahs could be supreme leader. So that's why he was not on the list. But he was showing that on his show as a way to demonstrate how unserious he is, that people are not taking him seriously. That shows that he doesn't know what he's talking about, and also shows that nobody on his team knows what they're talking about as well. So it's one thing for him to look at that poll and say, like, not understand what that this poll is not a good evidence for his point, but it's another thing for his entire research team looking at this and giving it to him, and nobody on his team told him that this is actually a retarded point. That is actually very impressive that nobody told him, right? So, and also, last point is that the
This
Iranian
looks like
people in the streets are fighting with their lives, shouting Princess Pahlavi's name. There is not a single other name that is being even suggested. It's not like Princess Pahlavi and then somebody else that is less qualified. Princess Pahlavi, it's wrong to say Princess Pahlavi is the best alternative, because to say that suggests that there are other alternatives. There is no other alternative. They don't even exist. And Patrick Bet David doesn't understand this. He's also betraying Iranian people. Iranian people in the streets of Iran are dying just to be able to shout out his name. And by being against Princess Pahlavi, you're basically standing against what the Iranian people are fighting for and what they're dying for. Does that answer your question, Sammy?
Yeah, so there were two questions to the response. For the first question, I would say he always brings the topic of Iran in his podcast. He's been doing so for a very long time, I believe. And yeah, it's very retarded of him to say who would be the next supreme leader of Iran. That I understand as well. And that's why I asked the question, if not Reza Pahlavi, then who? Then what? The second question I asked was, what would be the liberalization of Iran from Islam lead to, and how would it benefit countries like Jordan and Iraq?
For Jordan and Iraq, first of all, you're not going to have the Islamic Republic trying to destabilize those countries. That's a huge benefit, right? Jordan
Yeah.
doesn't have to worry about the Islamic Republic sending in its agents try to topple the regime. The Iraqis will not get the Hashd Shabi being funded in their own country, having a part like a Shia terrorist group running their politics. I mean, that would still be there, unfortunately, but at least it wouldn't be funded by Iranian gas and Iranian oil. So that's going to be a huge benefit. And when it comes to the Islam itself, I think that a lot of people, in the same way that the 1979 Islamic Revolution caused Islamization all around the region, both Shia and Sunni. So I would expect that the secularization of Iran will basically have the very opposite effect in a similar way, right? Because like the Islamization of not just the Middle East, but also Afghanistan and Pakistan and Indonesia and Malaysia, it was all tied to, and also North Africa, it all became amplified because of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. So, if the Islamization of Iran could have that much of an impact all around the region, I think that the secular, especially because I think the Iranian people are going to go for revenge, right? They're not going to, just in the same way that the Islamists were not content to spread Islamism within the borders of Iran. I think Iranian people, given how much this Islamization came from outside, and also because a lot of these Islamists came from beyond our borders to come kill Iranian people, I think just in the same way that Jews were not content with just having Israel after World War II and they went around the world hunting down Nazis, I think the Iranian people are going to also not be content with just secularizing Iran, and they're going to go out for revenge, finding their killers all around the world to not just kill their killers, but also to annihilate Islam. I think that we're going to be on a mission to spread secularization and anti Islamism, not just within Iran, but also beyond our borders. So I think you should get ready for a force to be reckoned with. I think you're going to create basically it's an anti-Islamic dragon waiting to be awakened to come be unleashed upon the world.
So you feel that there would be a fall of theocratic societies when Iran would be liberalized?
Well, I don't know how successful we're going to be. So you could, but I know we're going to go to war.
Thank you. That was my question.
Okay.
Right. Next, I will call up Jeffrey. He's back.
Oh, here it is.
I answered what I was going to say, so take the next guy.
All right. So we have Eric Sharifi.
Eric.
Yes, I'm here. Hello. Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to add to the points about doing research about Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. And, AI is pre-filtered based on opinions on other people, and so is Google searches. It usually index other people's opinions, not like facts or stuff like that. Okay, maybe facts, but it's mostly news articles and so on. So I think you should read Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's books. He has two books, Mission for My Country and Toward the Great Civilization. Those basically outlines his plan for Iran and like the way he wanted to move Iran away from oil and to venture into other industries. They are free to borrow on archive.org, and I think they will be a really good view for most people. That's what I have to say.
Let me actually add 2 points to that. So Muhammad Reza Shah, before the revolution, one thing he said as a king, which made a lot of mullahs make fun of him and laugh at him, is that he wanted to invest in solar energy, right? And the reason, I mean, for a lot of you, that's like something normal to talk about. But when he said it, that was not normal, right? Like that was not something, especially coming from Iran that has so much oil and gas. He was talking, he said that back then, this is something that even European countries in America or Canada were not saying. He was envisioning a time where people would move past oil, right? And he says our country cannot just be relying on oil and gas. And he was thinking like really long term, like really, really long term. He said that we should be investing in solar because we don't want our country to just be too dependent on oil and gas. And the mullahs were making fun of him. Like they were saying, Khomeini has a recording saying the idiot wants to get energy from the sun, right? Like he was making fun of him, right? But now, and even back then, the people who were supporting him didn't understand like what is he saying, like we have so much oil and gas. And then eventually decades after he died, when they now see how many the countries who rely so much on oil and gas, they're at a basically they're struggling to diversify away from oil and gas. So even his supporters didn't understand how ahead of time he is. Another thing that many people don't know, he had as one of his programs, which was way ahead of his time, and he gave a speech about this, and he never actually, like, he never had the time to actually execute it. He had a plan to go find all the best teachers for every subject for every grade in Iran. So the best teacher for math for grade 5, for example, in Iran, the best teacher for grade 8 for high school, for example, in chemistry in Iran. Find all of them, the best of the best, and then record them teaching every subject. And then he wanted to then play those recordings 24/7 on satellite TV free across the country. That was the plan that he had that actually never actually was enforced because of the Islamic Revolution. But that was the plan he actually announced at some point that he's going to try to do.
Yeah. And also about the diversification, you could add to that. In the 50s, the GDP from oil was 90%. In 1978, it was 35%. So even in those short, like 30 years span, he was able to diversify it, and he would probably do it even more moving into the 80s. So.
Amazing. That's good to
Also,
know.
there were plans for 3 nuclear plants.
Yep. All right, let's go to the next.
So next we have the other Eric, but he's no longer in the cult. So we're gonna go to Rebecca Barsef.
I was just.
There you go.
Am I? I think I was here. I didn't. I unfortunately was dozing off in the last speech, so I'm sorry, but I did write down to myself. You guys were talking about what your identity is composed of, and you were between individual, what is your individual needs and things like. I don't want to misquote it versus a community, but I want to suggest an alternative, and that is circles of responsibility. And I would, for example, say I'm responsible for myself, and there is also the role that I take in the world, right? That actually describes the responsibility I have, and then responsibility for my culture, my nation. But I also want to say, here is why circles of responsibility are interesting, because, for example, Armin here, who is a fellow creator, I would say I probably have the same amount of responsibility or even more to him than I do to a fellow countryman, because you have different communities you belong to as well. You have different circles of responsibility. Your role and your position as a doctor, you might be actually more responsible to the in a certain ways, to the doctor community or things like that that are international, also as a researcher. So there are circles of responsibility that you have, and I think your identity is composed of all of them. And I think first and foremost, your responsibility is towards yourself, and then your family, and so on.
Yeah, I just want to add, even when you have a responsibility to others, that's a responsibility to yourself, because the best way to get a sense of fulfillment for yourself is in the serve of other people. So even when you're serving your country, your patients, your students, your viewers, at the end of the day, you're serving yourself, because the highest amount of satisfaction and fulfillment one could feel individually as an individual is in the service of other people. So at the end of the day, it comes back to you. As much as I can, yes.
But you ignored my water warning. I
What
talked to
to
like an
Renee?
Iranian analyst on
Oh,
Tuesday, that is the biggest one in Israel, and we both agreed that this genocide was like it was gonna happen anyway. Like in the summer,
so
it
I
was
didn't ignore you. If Rebecca, if you see my phone, you will cry for me. If you see the number
a
of
year,
notifications I get on my phone, you will
not
be
now.
like, you
Now you
say this poor.
ignore me, but a
Yeah.
year ago.
Okay. Yeah, I did not ignore you. Promise you. I promise I did not ignore you. Okay. I need to hire a secretary to manage my messages. All right. But I'm glad here's the thing. Now that you're here, I can never ignore you because you come this is the best way to talk to me. You're
No,
here and I can listen to you.
find somebody
Yeah.
and make them talk to you is go to their house.
Yes. Okay. See, I don't ignore people. If they want to talk to me, they just come here and you can talk to me here. There you go. All right. Okay. Move let's
Uh,
next person.
Next person is Al Ace.
Hi, Arnold. This question's for you. I apologize if this has come up in the past, but I was curious because Susie said something yesterday that kind of triggered this idea that in the off chance that after the 100-day plan, the people maybe reject the constitutional monarchy and just go for a republic, what do you think would happen with Reza Pahlavi? Would he actually try to become a politician and run for office, or would he just kind of fade off into the sunset, or what do you think?
Whatever the result of the referendum is, we're going to accept that, right? I have a hard time seeing how it could be anything other than a monarchy because I think, given how people are happy regarding Pahlavi, I think that is going to make even people who didn't want to vote for monarchy to vote for monarchy, right? Like, I think, like, imagine the Islamic Republic has fallen and the people have managed to succeed by shouting the name Pahlavi. Jason, don't open your mic because I'm hearing a lot of background when you do. Just raise your hand and you're going to be added to the list. But in that environment, I think that there's so much, I don't know what it's called, jubilation and happiness and celebration for the return of Pahlavi, that nobody, I think, like, many people are going to, even people who think right now they're anti-monarchists, I think in that environment, they're going to be like voting for monarchy while crying, like from happiness. But again, what we have is many Republicans have agreed that if monarchy is chosen, like if people vote for monarchy, they're going to accept monarchy. And the vast majority of monarchists have also accepted that if people vote for a republic without a monarch, they're going to accept the result of the referendum, especially given that Prince Reza Pahlavi himself is going to be there. And if anybody wants to say, like, oh, no, they tricked us, this was a conspiracy, they didn't count it well, Prince Reza Pahlavi is going to be the sound of reason. If he comes and notices that this was a fair and transparent elections, he's going to say, like, yep, this is the result, we have to accept it. Everybody, most people will accept what Princess of Pahlavi says, right? Here's the thing, when it comes to what Princess of Pahlavi would do, honestly, if you have been following Princess of Pahlavi for the past couple of years, you will notice that if it was up to him, he wouldn't even be king, right? He has been, every position he has been taken, people have been begging him for years until he finally gave in every single time. Like, right now, even the position he has as the leader of the revolution and the leader of the transition period, this has been worked on for years before he finally said okay, right? So if he becomes king, is because people were begging him to do it. If he becomes any form of other politician, is because people were begging him. For example, when people were asking him that he needs to be the leader, he was insisting on, we don't need like a leader, maybe. And people are like, we want you to be the leader. And then eventually he was like, maybe we could have a council of leaders instead of having one leader. It took years and years and years of eventually telling him that, no, we want you to be the leader until he accepted. So he never, it's not like he ever came forward himself and said, like, oh, make me the leader. People have been dragged like, and that's why, like, if you're asking if he's going to go away if Iran doesn't become a monarchy, well, not if the Iranian people, he does things that he doesn't want to do just because many Iranian people are asking him to do it. So if Iranian people want him to serve as a prime minister, if he doesn't become a king, then he's probably going to serve as a prime minister because so many Iranians are asking for it. That is very similar to him becoming a king, because he's not asking to be a king. He doesn't even want to be a king. If he ever becomes a if he ever wants to be a king, is because we basically forced him to be. He actually, there was a leaked audio of him. Guys, mute your mics if you're not speaking. There was a leaked audio of him that one time he was telling the people around him that, like, I also have like rights, right? Like, I am being, like, you guys, like, everybody wants me to take these positions, and, like, you also, like, nobody is, like, basically his choices are completely being ignored. Like, if like, one time he also said, like, you guys know that I'm getting past the age of retirement, right? So based on all the things we know about him, we know that he doesn't want power. He's not hungry for power. If he was working for his best interest, he would just go home and live a comfortable life, and everything he's doing is because the Iranian people want him to help. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Way more than I thought. I mean, I also just want to say I appreciate I didn't know that much about how he came into that role. I've been following your channel for a little while now because after October 7th, you covered a lot of the topics there, and I want to thank you for that as a Jewish person as well. And yeah, thank you. Thank you.
But, well, let me just add one more thing before we move on to other people. I just want to tell people that, for a lot of people, power and fame looks very attractive, right? But for a lot of people who've experienced it, it might not seem as attractive as it might seem to you, especially to the Pahlavi dynasty. Prince Reza Pahlavi, the way his father died and the way his father was treated at the end of his life was one thing, but both his brother and sister committed suicide after the Islamic Revolution. So Prince Reza Pahlavi's brother and sister committed suicide. So this family has seen nothing, they had no positive experience for being in power. No positive experience. So, like, imagine all of that being your experience with your family being royalty and being in politics. So I personally, I wouldn't be too eager to go back into all of that, especially given that I have daughters that I love, that I will be putting at risk by being involved in all of this. Like, I would, if it was me and I was basically thinking about my own family, I would basically stare as far as I could from all of this.
I think Rebecca and then Michael wanted to add a short comment.
Rebecca,
I did. Okay.
maybe you wanted to talk about this or be added to the list, back to the list.
No, I think I had a question before and then it just went on and I just forgot about it. But
Okay, that's okay.
yeah.
No worries. All right, Michael.
Yeah. So I just want to add a quick little comment here. So basically, there's some people that having a monarchy, a constitutional monarchy, for many Americans might seem foreign because, in the beginning of the founding of this nation, we fought against the monarchy, right, to basically not have it. But you look at other countries, for example, good examples like Spain, like when Franco died, he handed the power over to King Juan Carlos I. And when he actually got into power, he actually turned Spain into a democracy, what we know today. And you look at, for example, countries like China, which is supposedly a democratic people's republic. You can argue that China is basically a dynastical monarchy, but with a communist flag in it. That's what it technically is. That's all I wanted to add.
All right.
Yeah, I remembered.
Okay, go ahead.
I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to ask you, right? You watch this Japanese style anime, which
Yes.
I'm very curious whether it was done by Japanese speakers or if it's AI, like AI
I don't
Japanese.
know.
But so there is a scene there with Netanyahu and Pahlavi, and I was kind of wondering, like, you didn't react on the fact that it looked like that they tried to hint there that he's being up, like,
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I'm
I,
saying,
I didn't want to highlight it because Goldie was really enjoying it, and I don't want to ruin that moment.
right?
But I
What did
didn't
you
like
think
that
of
part at
that?
all. I was bullshit. Yeah, I think the Iranian people have been, like, this completely dismisses the agency of the Iranian people. And I think that if Israel and America are now becoming more pro Pahlavi, is because they're realizing that the Iranian people are not going to accept anything else but Pahlavi. And basically, they're accepting the will of the Iranian people. It's not the other way around. Israel and the United States are not forcing Pahlavi on Iranian people. Iranian people have effectively shown to Israel and the United States that there is no option but Pahlavi. It's the other way
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
I mean, Israel started pro Pahlavi and it got a lot of backlash for it. So it like it went to okay, we're not gonna endorse anyone kind of policy. And then
Originally, Israel was actually focusing on Kurdish separatists and the MEK, and I understand why why they did that, because at that time those were the
Mhm.
most organized anti-Islamic Republic groups, and
I mean, we
Pahlavi
still
was
do
not.
that. It's just different hands,
Yeah, but I think
but
they're
not
not doing that as
MEK.
much anymore. I think everybody understands that MEK and the Kurdish separatists
No,
supporting them is
MEK
against the interests of
definitely not.
Israel, because it will basically risk the friendship that we could have with Israel, right, in the future. And I think that now that Pahlavi has proven to be a force to be reckoned with, Israel doesn't have to use those other options against the Islamic Republic, because we already have a much better option.
Well,
I understand Israel, that Israel is not there to serve the Iranian people.
no,
Israel's
it
government
was
is there.
for the Iranian people. The assumption was that even if they are the ones like that get the support, they're not gonna they won't be able to actually take over or separate. Right? The assumption was that
Yeah,
they
I
would be
understand.
the
Okay,
ones that
that makes
fighting
sense.
in the street right now against the IRGC.
That makes
Foot
sense.
soldiers,
Okay.
nothing
Yeah, I
by
understand.
like, which is, I'm sorry, it's
I,
like a bit brutal to say how those things work. It's not
yeah,
so just because you work with someone, it doesn't
I
mean that
understand.
you, you know.
Yeah, it's like basically, for example, United States sometimes actually even worked with some ISIS members to kill Al Qaeda members. Sometimes I understand it's ugly. Sometimes I understand.